We are once again doing the Autosportradio.com 2021 show from the Working Museum of Grand King Race Shops, also the home of the Top Gun race team. They're right here on the property and working on a car and getting ready to make their next appearance at Nashville. Today's program is presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, McGilvery's Pub and Eatery and Speedway, and VP Insurance. Everybody loves to go to a dentist. Well, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you where one is that you will love to go, and that's the Indy Dental Group. Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a spectacular practice. You will love it. I can almost guarantee that. Call and make an appointment for your next dental visit. You'll love it. 317-846-6125. And the computer doctor has a shop. He's located at 549 Fleming Street, which is just two lights east of, it's the second lights east of Lyndhurst on West Washington Street. So give him a call. You got a problem, talk to him about it. If you can get it to his shop, great. If not, he can make house calls. His number is 317-938-7711. And have you ever wondered why these guys and gals love driving IndyCar? Well, why not take a ride in one and see in the two-seater for the Indy Racing Experience? You can go online to indyracingexperience.com, find the date where they are going to be, and make it, sign up. And in the promo box, put DK1, you get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at the office. The number is 317-243-7171. Is it time for insurance for your home, your car, your commercial property? Then do what many of us have done and call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. The Indiana Insurance Commissioner recommends that every couple of years you check to make sure you're getting the best coverage at the best price. And we have found that VP does that. So give Mike a call, tell him what you need, and he'll fix you up. Number is 317-248-0070. If you ever had an idea in your mind that you want to have a vintage race car, or you have one, need it restored, well, give Grand King Shops a call. They can help you out. The number is 317-820-3595. And if you have a group, oh, wait a minute, I got to tell you this. You got to go check out SVRA. I just talked to Tony Perella. He'll be with us shortly. But he owns now the Trans Am series, and it is booming. And not only do they have the vintage cars, and now got Trans Am, and they have two other series that are being run that Tony bought from SCCA, and he has Scott Goodyear running them, and they're doing spectacular. So go to svra.com, look up the schedule, and find out where they're going to be. And if you can get there within an hour or two, I highly recommend go. It's great. They just ran this past weekend at Mid-Ohio and had record crowds. And while you're there, look at Speed Tour magazine. Subscribe to it. It's a great publication. Great stories, great pictures. And when you go to an event, it tells you things to look for in the area. So check it out. It's svra.com. Check the schedule and subscribe to Speed Tour magazine. My guest today is the gentleman in charge of PitFit. And you'll find that PitFit in Indianapolis is where mostly athletes from IndyCar, but I'm sure he may have other athletes that go up there to train and get in condition for their sport. My friend, of course, and my guest is Jim Leo. And Jim, thanks for taking the time. I know you're out basking in the sun at Watkins Glen.
So, yeah, no, glad to be here, Don. Glad to help out always.
What gave you the idea, or what kind of training did you have to get into the personal training type of job?
Well, I went to school for exercise physiology, and and that's a varied areas you can go into. I dabbled in cardiac rehab. I explored athletic training. I explored corporate wellness, and just kind of, you got a number of areas you can get into in that field. I happened to get into the corporate wellness field, and then that led me to working with Roger Penske at Detroit Diesel Corporation, and then that basically led to my involvement in motorsports, and I guess the rest is history.
Well, you seem to have been very successful because you have a goodly portion of the IndyCar drivers. Do you have any other athletes? I mean, there was as far as I know, he's still in town, a former heavyweight champion of the world. And there's the Pacers, the Colts. Do you have any other athletes in addition to the IndyCar?
Yeah, we've dabbled in the past. I've worked with helped train Chris Lytle, UFC fighter.
Oh, yeah, I've had Chris on the program, actually.
Yeah, great guy. Trained him
Yeah.
years ago and worked with some of the Colts, Donald Brown when he was with the Colts, a little bit with him. And there's various people we work with. I think you see what we do. We tend to draw in athletes because of the neurocognitive and vision training aspects of our program. We tend to draw in specific positions in sports. For example, we've had a number of hockey goalies in our program that whether NHL or whether they're junior hockey, college, high school, that's an area. We've soccer players and tennis players and things of that nature. That it's kind of a, what we do is very unique. And if we can obviously do things like train, conventional stick and ball athletes, but it doesn't take up much of our time or interest. So we try to. There's plenty of places in town that can do that kind of thing, and probably better resources or different resources than we have. So we tend to farm that stuff out if possible to others. But our primary market is still motorsports, and then we do a general population private membership as well.
Do you have any of the NHRA, for instance, or NASCAR or Trans Am coming up? Do they come to you?
Yeah. We have a couple. Over the years, I've worked with Larry Dixon and Morgan Lucas, Brandon Bernstein. J.R. Todd's been with us for a number of years. Richie Crampton. We had Brittany Force in here, I don't know, a week or so ago to work on her reaction training, and she's going to do some more stuff with us. And then with NASCAR, we have we basically have a satellite facility down in Cornelius, North Carolina. We've kind of kept that somewhat quiet because we don't want to blow it up too much, but we've got a number of drivers, various Cup Series, truck and sprint cars and the Matter down there training. So we have a very diverse market for the most part.
Well, I know that I've been up to your old office. I haven't been to your new one, but you moved. What was the reason for your move? Was it a bigger facility, more
we needed more
different stuff?
More space. We just ran out of space. The place that we were at before, we shared, was our space with a partner I had in the building. And then we had tenants in there, but we just, we basically made do with the amount of space that we had to run our performance program. And it just wasn't big enough. So we needed, basically we needed to double that size of the space that we had. And that's what we did. So we found a facility and designed it to what we needed. And it wasn't very long before we realized we probably need more space, but I think we're stuck here for a while. So we'll just make do.
Well, it's interesting when I did go up to your old facility. Again, I haven't been to your new one yet. And there was drivers there working in the various areas that they work in, a different, for lack of a better word, exercise that they go through is quite varied. And do you consider, now let's face it, and I've seen James Hinchcliffe, who will make a joke out of anything. The sun coming up, he'll find something funny.
Right.
But he said, that he makes his living sitting. Now, do you consider these race car drivers as athletes?
Well, I think you have to look at the definition of what is an athlete. I think that's specific to what you consider individually what you consider an athlete. If you consider stress on the body, if you consider elevated heart rates and the physiological stresses that you encounter, stresses on the muscle, those areas, obviously they are, because research has shown that. So I would say, based on what the demands are in the car, they're athletes. And are they the same kind of athlete as a tennis player or a football player or something of more conventional view? No. But there's still areas that they need to target that will help acclimate them in the car and improve their performance. So if you can improve your performance doing, an activity that causes stress to the body, I would say that's very athletic in nature. And therefore, in a sense, you are an athlete.
I know the last time I toured your place, you have plaques up on the wall who was outstanding in various different, exercises.
Right.
I can't think of anything better. And I noticed, strangely enough, that the number one guy from, if not all, almost all, was Scott Dixon. Well, when you look at his performance and what he does, when he's accomplished, and some of the things he's done, winning races, starting, 25th on a road course, and he wins the race and gets out of the car and jumps, you got to think, no wonder he's able to, do all this stuff, because he works very hard at it. And I assume you see him quite frequently.
Yeah, I've been with Scott since 1999, and it's actually a picture on my desk of him at Vancouver passing Philippe Giaffoni. Yeah, I mean, he physiologically, we've done VO2 max testing on Scott, and he runs a very high, what we call VO2 max, which is your ability to basically utilize oxygen that's available to you. And his numbers were in the same range of the 70s that you would find with any collegiate level or national class endurance athlete. So his physiological makeup is far superior to most people as it stands. He has a very high tolerance for pain. He has a very high tolerance for stress. His body's production of lactic acid, which is it's kind of the thing that slows you down when you get tired. It's the body's signal to say, hey, slow things down, I'm working too hard. His body's ability to basically dissipate that acid buildup, or not build up as much, is one of the highest we've ever seen. So there's just a number of areas physiologically that he is superior to the average person. And then mentally, he's extremely, extremely strong, able to push himself farther than probably anyone. One of the few people that can push themselves that far. He's one of the few people that has that ability. So there's just a number of factors that roll into this, and it obviously his success on track is amazing. His proudness from the physical side in our facility, or whether it's doing triathlons or whatever, those areas are superior in a lot of ways. He's not the greatest at everything. He's just he's great at certain things. He's really good at others. I think he can't play basketball very well. I've seen him shoot baskets. I think he's pretty lousy at that. But besides that, I don't know. I know he doesn't golf. Neither one of us really have much for golf, so I know that's not probably one of his strong suits. But I'm sure if he picked it up, he probably could master just about anything at this point.
Now, on the other side of the coin, are there athletes that you have, drivers you have, that you have to work with to build them because they can't do something and are very difficult for them, but you can build up to where they can become good?
Absolutely. And everybody's different. With our assessment process, we really look at the certain areas that we find are necessary to make a great race car driver. We determine where this person needs the most work. We target those areas first and foremost to bring them up to a certain level. And some people come in, we've had drivers that'll come in and very, very high in some categories and just abysmally low in others. And they just haven't trained this way. This is not the way our program is so unique in what we do that it's almost impossible to replicate what we're doing from top to bottom anywhere in the world. And so we have them come in and they're not able to perform certain tasks as maybe they would hope to. And it's psychologically, it's very frustrating for these drivers. But once they realize that this is a process you have to go through to get to a certain level, they're not going to compete with the top dogs who have been doing this for several years, but they will essentially come into it, and we can improve them to their capacity, which still may not be as high as some other drivers in the program. But you have to understand that just because a driver is the fittest driver or scores the highest on a reaction board doesn't mean he's going to win a race, or she is going to win races. That we're just one component of creating the human performance athlete on a racetrack. Actually driving the car, which is not our specialty. Those are areas that you still need the good team and the talent and all those other things. So, but we can bring them up to the top level of the physical side and reaction and cognitive side to their top level, so they are at least those areas that they're prepared for.
When you speak of reaction time, when you're going, say at Indianapolis, for instance, at 240 miles an hour and a front or back straight, and that turn one comes very quickly at that speed. And sometimes you have other cars that you're trying to get around, or whatever you're doing, your reaction time's got to be split second. You don't have time to, think about it. You've got to react. And can you train drivers, male and female, to look for that and be able to react to it quickly? Very quickly, obviously.
Yeah, and I think there, what you encounter is you have the ability to improve a driver's response to an environment, an external stimuli, whether it's visual or audible. They will respond to it quicker with practice, and we can help develop those neural pathways to improve that. Now, there are ways for us to do that, and we have many tools that we do. There's ways to improve their cognitive ability to, because you've got the sensory input of information coming in. Then you have to take that information that's coming in and process that, and then make a decision, and then perform the motor skill to change or whatever you're going to do. So there's a sequence in there that you really have to focus on. The sensory input coming in, that's going to be something that a driver is going to gain through experience. He's going to recognize whatever he encounters, he or she, the longer they do this, the more experience they have, the more they have seen everything, so to speak. So there's nothing really new. The speed of time that they can process that, we can work on those areas. And that's one big area that we work on. Their decision is, unfortunately, until you put them in the exact situation that they need to be in, we can't precisely put them in a situation where they're driving 200 miles an hour and having to respond to a tire coming off of the wall or whatever the situation might be. Like, that's experience. That just takes time. We can train them to make them better, but the difference between a young driver and an older driver or more experienced driver is that the experienced driver has been there. So they hopefully can make the right decision. Not always. There's still drivers who've been around for a long time that still make dumb decisions. I remember Scott hitting, the coming into pit lane at, I don't know, 03 or 04. I don't know what year it was at Homestead, and, and smashing into the tire, in the pit lane barrier. I mean, that happens. People do things like that. But what we can do is enhance the processing speed, and then help them with the decision-making process. How they decide on what that decision is really based on experience. And that has to be seat time in the car. It's just experience. So, we're part of the equation, but we're not going to train them to respond to a specific stress on the track that we can't duplicate.
Right.
And if anybody tells you they are, they're selling you, a piece of land in Florida or something like that. So,
with your years of experience, but I'm sure you still look to areas like Michigan State University. They have things that they work on that if I'm not mistaken, you look to them and work with them, or they help you and you work on things that they may have come up with that you hadn't thought of yet. Does that go on, that you build yourself by, and I'm sure others contact you and say, what do you think about this? I would assume.
Well, there's no way around it. I mean, that's I think my curiosity in this field is never ending. And that is probably what has put us to where we are today. Just not being afraid to try new things or reach out to certain people or leaving ego to the side, because, I learned long ago that you've got to build a good team. And it's amazing when you go to people and you tell them that, hey, you're better than I am at this. Would you be willing to help me? Most people are thrilled to be able to help, to get involved. I don't think I've ever encountered anybody who won't, offer to help. And Michigan State's a great example. David Ferguson, who is our science director, he's a consultant that works for us. He's been doing a huge amount of research up there for years, starting with Charlie Kimball. He's worked a lot with Charlie Kimball, but now he's kind of doing his own lab and creating a curriculum, which I think you're seeing more and more of that in the field. But that's a background that I'll never get a PhD. To be honest, I don't have an interest. I don't have time to do it, but I can reach out to David. I was just reached out to him earlier today about something to do with heat training. And, you know, they're willing to help out with this information. We acknowledge that's their specialty. And so someone like that, or in other fields, you know, you have to reach out to the best people in the field to help your program. And I think that's what's really raised our game with our drivers, is they know that, you know, we'll do whatever it takes to make them improve the performance in the car, make them safer in the car. There's no stone unturned. We'll research the goofiest things in the world and fail maybe 9 out of 10 times, but it's that one thing you discover that has benefit. So, you know, that I think you have to have that drive to continue to find and achieve. And as, you know, as technology changes and we learn more things of the human body, it just you have to continuously go out there and seek what else is out there. The International Council of Motorsport Science is a tremendous organization that I'm part of. And I've noticed in the last, you know, 5 years or so, they put more emphasis on the performance side of the racing driver than in the past. It used to be, you know, those seminars, those workshops were a lot about safety, a little bit about physiology, you know, burns and extraction and those kind of things. But then they, you know, with the integration of guys like David Ferguson and Dan Marin, who is the chair, or he was, you know, they basically have realized that there is a whole component to this side that we can incorporate into our program. And you have these young athletic trainers or physical therapists, young or old, that are interested in this and using what they know to enhance the sport. And so I think, you know, you've got to reach out to these people and you know, listen to what they have to say, and that benefits everybody in the long run.
You mentioned something that has crossed my mind numerous times watching IndyCar in particular, and that is with the advent of the halo and the screen has created a problem with heat, which IndyCar is working on trying to make it better. However, they still say on a warm day, it's hot in that car.
Yeah.
Is there something that you can do to build a driver's body and ability to withstand that and still perform at the top level? I've noticed, as many people have, some drivers get out of the car and they collapse. I mean, they just have to sit down. They're exhausted. Others, and Mr. Dixon is one, bounces out of the car like he's ready to go again. Can you train for that so that you can accept the heat and withstand it and still perform at a top level?
You can certainly increase the body's ability to tolerate the heat and perform at optimal levels in those conditions. You can certainly do that, and we've done that. We address this. We've always kind of addressed this, but I think when we learned about the heat conditions with the halo and the screen and everything, and started hearing more and more, we started doing a lot more research. And, you know, again, David Ferguson is someone that we rely on. He's done a lot of research on heat stress up at Michigan State with the drivers. And we just roll these things into our program. So yeah, we've been doing that. There's some, you know, the things that we do, it isn't something that's brand new. There's some things we do that are a little more unique, but there are ways to train the body. You know, the body basically acclimates to heat. You can do it in 7 to 10 days. You know, training if you live in warm weather conditions, obviously that's useful. If you're down in Miami all the time, you live in it, that's more beneficial than just training in it. Just same thing with altitude training. The benefit isn't training in those conditions. The benefit is living in those conditions. So you know, from our standpoint, you can't push the body at a high enough level in those conditions to where you're basically getting the metabolic adaptation to make you more physically fit, in a simple term. So you know, the body, just like at altitude, you can go and train at altitude, but you can never push your body to the certain level. So you actually can have a decrease in the training adaptation. The benefit comes from just breathing it. And that's why with an altitude chamber, you're far better to sleep in the chamber than you are to train in it. That's the benefit. Same thing with heat. You're far better to just be involved in a hot environment on a regular basis than you are to go out and try and train at these optimal levels, because your body, you know, may not be able to go to those levels. It may be, you know, dangerous. So being physically fit is going to be crucial, number one. That's a huge element. Your body's ability to dissipate heat and tolerate heat. The more physically fit you are, the leaner you are, the more your body is able to tolerate those kind of heat stresses. So that is something that we've always pushed for. But we also tend to train or have our drivers spend periods of time in an infrared sauna after training. 20 to 45 minutes in a hot sauna or an infrared sauna, doing a brain training app like the Soma app that we use. So they're in there doing something the whole time. But so we get the heart rate, we get the drivers fatigued, elevate their heart rate, get the core temperature hot. And when they're done, they finish with 40 minutes or so in the sauna, and they're doing some sort of brain training activity while they're under that stress. That's we found has been the best solution.
Now, one of the up and coming drivers are becoming very popular had an accident, and he's been out of working recently, but for the last couple of years, actually. Are you working with Rob Wickens to help him? And is there any chance that he will be able to once again get into a race car, an IndyCar in particular? I think he's doing something with Brian Herta now, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we worked with Rob. I mean, I worked with Rob back in 2004 with Formula BMW when he drove there with Graham and James and Matt Jaskell, and there's a whole crew of them that were driving that first year at BMW USA. So I knew Robert from then. Then he worked with us a little more when he drove with Jerry Forsyth in the Atlantic Series. He and James were teammates. And then when he came back here, he drove DTM, began working with us right away when he signed in with Schmidt, and we were working with him when the accident happened. Since then, we've been part of his rehab process, or just one part of it. There's a team actually working on this, but there's at this point, I think the opportunity to drive a race car is certainly there. We saw that when he drove the Herta car around Mid-Ohio. I don't know if that, other than the hand control, is in the future. I think that's the direction that he realizes he's probably going to be involved in. When it comes to IndyCar, I mean, that's not for me to say. Could it be done? I don't know. I think if anyone can do it, Rob can. He's physically prepared in every way, shape, and form, and we've pushed him past just the rehab mode for several months now into the driver mode. We're still working on his rehab, but we've incorporated a lot more of the driver specific activities into his training. So I think the goal is to, when opportunity arises, he's prepared for it.
Very interesting. I have found from talking with drivers that use your facility, the advantage to them is they can't believe it. It's just what you train them to do and get their bodies ready to do. They have nothing but great things to say, that they feel they're physically ready to get in a car to withstand the pressures of, be it road courses, street courses, or ovals, where they, all of which have a different effect on your body. And of course,
Right.
The cars now are built so that you don't have to have quite as much head and neck muscle because your head is held, but it still counts because it does lean. It has to move, obviously, to some degree. So, and I'm always, impressed with what you do, what you've done, how you've done it, the effort you put into making it the best it can possibly be. And from what I understand, you are, if not the best. There certainly isn't anybody much better by any means.
I have a great team around me, which I can't take all the credit. Believe me, we have a great team, great resources, great relationships with various doctors and facilities and partners. And so I think that single mind focus with motorsports has really put us in a position that's fairly unique. We don't dabble in it. It's our primary, that's what we focus on. And I think it's one of those things where, personally, my goal is to continue to see others do what we're doing, help them grow. Cause I think the more people are doing what we do, it makes the sport safer, and I think that excites me, is just the next generation of Jim Leos out there or don't have to go through all the hurdles that I had to go through to try to sell people on this. And learn all these things. Now we've kind of got those resources available for these young trainers and coaches and such. And if we can impact them, then that's my long-term goal.
Well, obviously you can't do everything yourself. And it takes you, I think, to be able to pick out the people that can do what you need done. So for that reason, I have complimented you. But obviously, as I know, you do have a staff, but it wasn't some Yahoo like me walked in the door and said, I can pump iron. You say, oh, yeah. So my hat is off to you and your staff. I hear nothing but rave reviews on what you do.
Oh, that's great.
In addition, you get your people in for whatever activity they're primarily driving, as you said, IndyCar in particular. I thank you for your time. I haven't talked to you in a while, and I always enjoyed listening to. And one of these days, I got to get up to your new place and see what
Absolutely.
that looks like. So
absolutely, anytime.
We appreciate your time, and what you're accomplishing, I think, is phenomenal. My hat is off to you. You know, I'm not wearing one, but my hat is off. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being here. And who knows, one of these days there'll be a knock on your door again. Never know.
All right, Don. Thanks, buddy. Have a great day.
You too. My guest has been Jim Leo, the owner of PitFit here in Indianapolis, and one of the top trainers of and motorsports there is in the country. We have some more guests online, so keep an eye out for us. We'll let you know when they're there. Till the next time, this is Don Kay saying thanks for watching. See you again. Goodbye.